after discussing the record of rights, now we'll proceed to discuss the next chapters. Compared to earlier chapters, this is less important chapters, but we have to discuss because so far as the collection of land revenue concerned, this chapter is very important. The chapter 11 of your book deals with realization of the land revenue and the demand of land revenue or other demands in respect of the land revenue. Especially section 168 to section 184 of the Maharashtra Land Revenue Codes deals with this aspect. Intentionally, I am dividing this chapter into three sub chapters. The first chapter, which we are going to discuss, that is the general rule as to recovery of the land revenue. These are the general rule so far as the recovery of land revenue is concerned. And under this chapter, we'll discuss firstly the provision under section 168, which deals with who are liable to pay the land revenue. Now, this is but obvious questions, but that who are responsible, who are liable to pay the land revenue, and as a general rule, the landlord is liable to pay the land revenue. Landlord means the person who is the owner of the property. Apart from this, there are certain categories of the person who are liable to pay the land revenue to the state government. That is the occupant. Occupant include the person who take the property on the lease from the state government, because occupant is different and the owner is different. Sometimes owner is a different person and the person who is actually occupying the property is different, or the superior holders. We have already discussed what is the meaning of superior holder. Then the tenants. Sometimes if the tenant they are in possession of the property, they are liable to pay. And the other category of the person who is in possession of the land. So as per section 168, apart from landlord, all these persons they are liable to pay the land revenue. Now the next aspect came into picture. What is the actual date for payment of the land revenue? And section 170 of the Maharashtra Land Revenue Code deals with this aspect, that is called date on which land revenue liable to be paid. Because as a rule, every revenue year, land revenue is paid to liable to be paid, and if it fails, then the person is liable to pay the land revenue with the certain fine as prescribed by the law under the section 170. But general rules say that every land revenue year, the land revenue has to be paid, and first April is the land revenue year, which we have already discussed, that has to be paid. And if there is arrears of land revenue, then then the person is liable to pay the land revenue along with the fine. And generally the payment of land revenue is prescribed is to be paid in terms of the cash or in terms of the money only, and not in terms of the other like crops and all this. It is in terms of the cash only that is to be paid to the government or to the revenue officer. So if this amount, if this particular amount is not paid, paid by the person within the prescribed period, that is as per section 170 for the revenue years, then the such person will be declared as per section 161 as an that particular amount firstly will declare as a arrears to the such persons. त्याला आपण बाकी असं म्हणतो. So once it is declared as an arrears under section 168, and if the person is not, if the person is failed to pay the amount, then as per section 173, then such person will be declared as the defaulters in the payment of money. Once the person is become the defaulters, then the procedure is provided for the either recovery or imposing the penalty on the such defaulter, and that procedure is provided under section 169 and section 174 of the Maharashtra Land Revenue Code. It's specially provided that if an installment or any land revenue is unpaid and the arrears, there is arrears of amount to the person, and if such a person is failed to pay the amount within 1 month after the default, that is after the due of the amount on the after the prescribed period, then the collector has a power to impose the fine on such person. That fine is should it should not be more exceed than the 25% of the arrears amount. Like if suppose the land revenue is 100 rupees, and if he failed to pay the amount and arrears, and the amount is arrears to the person, then the collector can impose the fine 100 plus 25 rupees. It should not be more than 25 rupees. So this is what the consequences of the initial consequences of the failure to pay the amounts within the prescribed period. Or if the amount is not paid, then the collector has a power to recover such amount as a recovery of the land revenue. And if this particular arrest is one kind of debt over the property, and it is on the priority basis. When we calculate, if there are so many arrears on such land, then arrears of land revenue will be on the priority. It has to be paid first, and then the other areas like bank and other areas has to be paid. So these are the simple two rules provided under this aspect. Now after this, then we'll discuss what is the procedure for recovery of arrears. Of, of course, this is one kind of debt or the property, and the government, that areas can be used as a debt over the property. So if the real revenue is not paid within the prescribed period, then it becomes an arrears over the land, and the person will be declared as a defaulter. Once the defaulter is declared, then the government will issue the firstly, this is what the second procedure, that is the procedure, that the certificate under section 175, that certificate, once the person is become a defaulter, then the collector or the assistant collector or deputy collector or the tahsildar in that case will issue the certificate of the account under section 175 by mentioning that he is the defaulter of the person because he has not paid the prescribed period, and this much amount is arrears with this person. And apart after issuing the certificate, then section 1 under section 178 of the Maharashtra Land Revenue Code, the the collector or these revenue officer, they may issue the notice for recovery, like recovery notice. General liquid notice will be issued for the recovery of the amount, and that notice has to be issued under section 178 of the uh, Maharashtra Land Revenue Code, where 176 deals with the different aspect for recovery of the amounts, that deals with the various method for recovery of the arrears. And the first method is firstly by serving the notice, like we just now we discussed under section 178, the collector or the revenue officer will issue the first default notice under section 178, and after issuing the notice, then the next stage came into picture, that is the forfeiture of the property or occupancy, the holding in respect of the defaulters. That has to be done under section 179 of the Maharashtra Land Revenue Code. Once this is done, then the revenue or the government has the authority to sell the property under section 180 in order to recover the land revenue from the government, and or the government under section 188, I'm sorry, 181, they can attach the property and they can sell the property of the defaulters. And apart from this, if the government think that sale or attachment is not important, then the government can directly arrest uh, the person, and they can retain in the civil prison or defaulter under by using the power under section 183 and 184 of the Maharashtra Land Revenue Code. However, when we can say that attachment of the holding, there are certain things which are exempted from the attachment, like for the necessary wearing apparels of the particular person, vessels, bed, or the that particular person or his wife or the children's, then personal ornaments, then the tools of that which are used for the agriculture purposes or for the husbandry of the agricultures, or the articles for the education for the use of religious endorsement. And then the house and other buildings cannot be attached so far as the recovery of the land revenue is concerned. Now we are on the point of the consequences of the non-payment of the land revenue. This is what the last aspect we'll discuss. The first one we have already discussed, the attachment and forfeiture of the occupancy. This is what the power under section 179 we have discussed. That the collector, after issuing the notice of the proclamation, after issuing the notice, if the person is not paying then the collector will declare the proclamation that the certain person by using the power under section 192 and 193, that he's not paying the revenue, and now within the 15 days, if he failed to pay the land revenue, then his ownership or occupancy will be forfeited by the state government. And after within 15 days, if he not pay the amount, then by using the power with reference to section 72 and 73, the collector may sell or dispose of the property as per section 72 or 73, and they may recover the amount, that is land revenue. Apart from this, when they have carried out the sale, section 180, 181 and 182 of the Maharashtra Land Revenue Code came into picture, that when we, in respect of the movable property, the rules are different. In respect of immovable property, the rules are different. Of course, those property which are exempted, that cannot be sold, that cannot be auctioned, that cannot be by the collector. But the collector may, by acquiring the ownership of the property, it may sell the property, it may transfer to another person, and they can recover the land revenue. Or lastly, the recourse uh, under section 183, they can arrest the defaulter, and they can detain in the civil prison. And if the default is there, but when there is arrest is carried out, that arrest, it should not be more than the 10 days. And even after the 10 days, if the defaulter is not paid the uh, amount of arrears, then the collector of the tahsildar, as the case may be, they have to send the person to the civil jail of the district. This is what the simple procedure provided for the arrears, collection of the land revenue, and what is the consequence of default of land revenue.